I'm Stefan Ahlbom, Solution Specialist at Timextender. I'm here today at Touchstone office with Tito and Paul. Guys, who are you?
My name's Tito Patterson. I am the Data and Integrations Developer here at Touchstone UK.
My name's Paul Atkinson. I'm a consultant specialising in data warehousing for Touchstone.
I mean, you're a partner of Timextenders. You've been working with a lot of customers using Timextender, implementing that automation tool and leveraging from that. But you've also started off by using Timextender internally. So how did that start?
We have a lot of tools. We have our CRM, Flowcentric, Time at Work, and our Sun systems all on various different servers. And a lot of our internal users want different bits of data from it. So to create different cubes, different dimensions for these various business units, it's been fairly easy and fairly intuitive. I come from a very sort of old school SSIS, SAS background, and also scripting, sort of, say, mock data warehousing.
A lot of tools manual scripting to bind them together.
Yeah. But Timextender takes a lot of that out for me, and all I have to do is bring in stuff from staging tables that we already connect up from the data source to joining up things where a lot of it is the logic behind the scene is done, and it's done how I would write it as well. Or there's stuff that I could actually manipulate or overwrite if I don't actually specifically want a specific join, whatever. But when it comes down to processing and cubes or creating dimensions, previously, not so long ago, I was asked to create a couple of more dimensions for internal use. That took all of 10-15 minutes to do,
from start to end. That's really impressive.
Put it into the relevant cube, join up to the data, and then actually deploy and execute the model, and then bring it into, say, our endpoint Power BI.
So it's ready for the business.
It was ready for the business within sort of half hour, 45 minutes, whilst a couple of sensor checks.
So how did you go about this from the beginning? How did you go about the project of implementing Timextender for your internal use? Did you start as a big project planning everything ahead, or can you start off with a few data sources and just a dashboard?
We can go from a few, data sources and then build it out. It depends on the use that we need. I'm currently sort of planning out a new implementation or a new cube for one of the business units. So is to create a whole 360 view of our sort of customers, where we've got what our contracts are, contract lines, what our clients purchasing. So either maintenance services, or also what our consultant, myself, if I'm on a client project, how many hours I'm spending on it, what the costs are on that, and it can be reported out to the wider business, not just that specific.
You get a full view of your customers.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Really well done. Well done.
And I think what's become interesting is, as a consumer of that information, is that we've had Timextender in place here for 10 years or so now, and over that time, the way in which we consume that data has changed. You mentioned Power BI, but obviously before that, we've used tools such as Click or Target, and we've been able to swap those out. That because of the strong semantic layer that sits within Timextender, with very, very little change. It was very, very quick and easy to move off of Target onto Power BI, using the things like the cubes, the SSMs,
just switching the endpoints from one BI tool to another
because
BI
of that
tool.
Strong semantic layer that Timextender builds for us. It was an incredibly seamless process.
Holistic approach to the metadata. That's fantastic. But that goes into the next question. I mean, you recently had a project where you needed to migrate from one platform to another data platform.
So that was fairly easy, because all we needed to do, because of the project repositories and everything that was already there, all we had to do was just back up and the database, relevant databases, restore them onto the new servers. We're still currently going on under this project because there's a few other bits that we need to do. But then once we restored them, opening up Timextender or installing Timextender onto that new server,
exactly,
opening up, and it reads that project repository, and you don't actually have to do too much else. All you have to do is point it to the new SQL service, things like that, and off you can go, rerun the queues, repopulating things, making sure that the structures are still the structures that you originally put in. But the sensor checking, I wouldn't say it's minimal, but it is a lot easier to do than what you would have to do previously.
And sort of going hand in hand with that is one of the, and this is now talking not just from Touchstone's perspective, but also from the clients that Touchstone now serves with Timextender, is that sort of the functionality for a global environment within Timextender, which allows us to configure dev environments, test environments, the live environment. And that repository sort of syncing up between as you effectively release from layer to layer, from all the way down from when we first start a project through to when it goes live. It is so quick and easy. It worked with, if you were doing that actually on SQL, you'd have to manage the connections. You'd have to make sure if you were sourcing data from somewhere, you repoint IPs, open gateway. It gets very messy and complicated very quickly. Timextender handles that, and it's sort of click of a button sort of stuff to say, promote this repository version from test to live. It makes it so quick.
Really good to hear. And obviously you got a lot of experience from working with Timextender internally and then bringing it out to customers as well. So do you have a specific type of customers, and what systems do they use in implementations?
From personally, my background is finance and accounting, so I tend to focus on that area more. But in Touchstone's wider perspective, no, the customer base can cover a multitude of sins. Is that the right word to use here? But, working with media companies to connect to their marketing campaign stuff, working with pension funds and looking at their investment portfolios, the manufacturers looking at operations, the gamut that the platform can cover. The out-of-the-box connectors, I can't remember the number now, but you probably tell me about it.
Something like that. Yeah, they're growing.
I've not come across something that I've not been able to connect to, which is another huge time saver from my perspective.
Fantastic as well.
And I can think of a particular client who is a global sort of hospitality business who use sort of 9 different ERP platforms. And one of their challenges has always been that their master data differs. And they buy a new business, and that brings in a 10th platform. And suddenly they've got a group structure that they've got to adhere to. But their whole ethos is light touch on their acquisitions. So they don't want to change what's going on in there. They want us to deal with it. But actually, the reality is we've now set it up so that we don't have to get involved.
Getting that data in.
They get it in, they map
one
it.
format and map it up to one system.
And Timextender then just runs it, and it's quick and easy.
That's a very good case, really.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
I think going back to one of your earlier points where you're saying that where we take things from our internal projects to external, we do the same. There was a couple of things that I took from an external project and thought, we could actually implement that back into ours because, I forgot that we could do this. Or
you learn along the way.
Along the way, because actually this could actually save us a lot more time if we did it here instead of there. And then we could push this same logic out and say, okay, well, we have where we have a standard to deploying projects because we've got a Sun connector, we've got pre-access connectors pre-built, so it makes things a lot easier to deploy onto client sites. I mean,
now we're talking about we're raising the data quality for the customers very easily. We're also getting the data out to the business users, and this is something that you need when you do when you want a business to be data driven. Is this something that you see out at the customers? You sit and do implementation stuff like that. You don't see the business, but is it something that you hear from the customers that they are getting more data driven? One thing that you would see perhaps is that they ask for more dashboards because that's what the business wants. So they want more and more and more.
Yeah, and it comes in areas that you don't always expect. Like I said, I have a tendency just through experience of starting with finance. I've recently been working with a charity who wanted dashboarding for their accounting department. So that was all done. Pulled all the data in, sorted it all out, cleaned it. Data cleansing is a massive piece of work. It's incredibly important. They were really happy. Better results, better information, not better financial results, better resulting data and dashboards.
Correct results,
reporting.
not bad
data. But that then led to a sort of drive into areas that finance hadn't foreseen, which was first of all into their operations and sort of collecting sort of data about sort of raising money, charity, donations. But then actually they're also a large retail business, very large retail business. And it's been driven out into there. So now all of the store managers' data, which used to be collected by Excel, is now being collected through a front end that's going into data warehouse and then coming out as dashboards. It's just a much more joined up, holistic approach.
A surprising amount of businesses out there still using Excel sheets that needs to go into some sort of data warehouse and then out to a dashboard. But that's the reality. And when you have a tool that you can actually do that with, it's a lot of help for the organizations out there.
Yeah, and to sort of mirror what Paul said, I mean, I've just about finished a project up, or in stages of the project right now. And when we were going through some of the numbers, it was an archiving project, but they were just making sure that numbers matched what they saw. And did have so one of those last minute requests, actually, could we see something, an extra layer of information? And because once they saw what we could pull out, it was, again, not my first choice, but there was an Excel sheet that we helped build for them. And they were like, oh, actually, could you go down a level? And we had that all pre-configured, predefined, so that we could easily just drop into the pivot table and just, there's your information. Till 10 minutes later, we were scheduled for an hour call. Ended up 15 minutes. They had their information. Thank you very much.
Time to dashboard is fantastic.
I was going to say, I think one of the things, it's not just them seeing what we can pull out, it's how quickly we can pull it out now as well. And I remember a client we've been working on quite recently who have a data warehouse that we've built for them, and which is kind of finance driven, and they have an operational data warehouse that is still all hand coded. And we needed an expansion for a different project of the data sets that were being used by us. And they came up with an internal quote because it was operational data, which was very large. It was 100 odd days. And we came back with, well, we can achieve this in sort of 20 days. What are you guys doing? And when we broke it down, trying not to be rude, but when we broke it down and went through it, one of the things they had was 25 days of data testing, because every step in their process, they wanted to effectively do line by line checking, because they just didn't, and they wanted to rerun it with certain variables.
You want to be sure that you actually get quality from the data.
But the quantum of testing that they required, because the processes were all hand coded, whereas building with something like Timextender, where we can sort of very easily show that it's a governed process, where we can, the data, and they wanted a huge amount of time, I think 10 days for documentation. It doesn't actually sound like a huge amount, but to, you just reacted to that. To us, that's a huge amount of time, because of the way Timextender creates documentation as you go along, and it does it natively.
Yes. And the thing is, now they've written a lot of code in the beginning, and then someone changes something in a data, so there's the data field or something. You need to change that code along the way, and then you need to change or update the documentation as well. And nobody does that.
No. I just say, coming from that kind of background as well, it is, if you go onto a legacy project like that, and you kind of go, oh, hang on.
You go into that reverse engineering.
You reverse engineering thing, but here it's laid out, or in Timextender it's laid out, and you kind of natively know where to look for bits and pieces, because It is how you see it in those columns, and you see, okay, you've got the data warehouse, you've got the semantic layer, you've got the OLAP. It is how it's been approached. And if you also look at the data lineage, I'm sure if you have a look at that part, you can actually backtrack all the way down to the source table and say, actually, it's coming from this table, and you can actually reverse engineer it.
Exactly. So someone actually from the business sees just a data point in their dashboard, and they're questioning if it's correct or not. Yeah. So you can actually just pull out the data lineage and see the transformations, and even go back to the data source and see where it comes from.
Yeah, and then preview that table if you so need to, and then say, right, okay, well, here's what you start, and you can explain to them, okay, if you just look at these lines here, goes here, transforms here, where else you had to, in a traditional sense, had to go back to the fact tables, and then you had to go back into the SQL code, which probably was changed by about 5 other people before you've got
exactly. And someone had coded that in some way, and you don't know if it was made in another way. If there was incremental loading set up in a specific way, you don't know where that is. Yeah. So it's a lot of problem. Obviously, you guys have a lot of experience of using an automation tool like Timextender. This is fantastic.
I've been working in this industry for a long time. Yeah. Too many years that I want to admit to anyway. The sort of move away from sort of manual coding has meant that projects have sort of increased in scope, but not increased in the amount of time taken. They've put us in a position as well where it's sort of, there's an incredibly solid base for stuff that's coming down the line. But yeah, I recently was, like a lot of people, been looking and implementing AI solutions, just starting in that arena. And one of the things I didn't have, I normally have a sort of whole set of SQL pieces that I sort of carry around with me. I didn't have one that I normally have, which is a piece of code that allows me to search an entire database for particular strings in different column types. And it would probably take me a good few hours to recreate. And I was feeling slightly lazy and slightly inquisitive. So I actually asked ChatGPT to create one. And it did. And it did it very, very quickly. 3 minutes it took effectively to analyze all the tables, work it out. What was then interesting was, because I was then thinking about it and playing, was that I then thought, well, actually, can I use that and actually integrate it as a SQL snippet into Timextender and effectively call it? Because I asked ChatGPT to make it sort of variabilized and parameterized. And you were able to. So you've instantly got, just because I forgot something, this integration of sort of AI tech with this data warehousing tech. Suddenly you've got the ability to search vast amounts of data for any string you want, and it's taken me 3 minutes to put it together and make it repeatable for a user. And that's really automation. That was real fun. Yeah. Just because I suddenly thought, whoa, that's actually quite cool.
You touched on another topic that is really, really hot at the moment, AI and machine learning and stuff like that. Now, if we're talking projects that you have, and internal project, but also at your customers, you have an implementation where you have one single storage, really. So data is in one place and in one format. Then you have good quality data there as well because you built it. And that means that these customers and you guys are ready to start using AI. You can start just playing around with it and see where you want to build, what you want to test. So it's ready made for that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be, a few years back, the buzz phrase was data lakes. And it's, and we still get that. But it's coming back to people, and we'd get sort of, well, why do we need a data warehouse? We've spent all this money on a data lake. And it's starting to, the penny is dropping. Data lakes are very good pieces of tech, but they're a piece of a puzzle. Yeah. And what they do is allow you to sort of collect vast amounts of data very, very quickly and very safely. But you still need to structure it. You still need to cleanse it. You still need to have that reliable, clean, analyzable data. Yeah. You're talking about cubes, that online analytical processing, OLAP cubes, analytical, that data has to be analyzed. Data lakes aren't any good.
Better for machine learning. For that, if you want to do AI, you need to sort of get that clean data, that consolidated data, and transformations, stuff like that. Yeah,
same place,
exactly,
same structure.
Exactly.
I agree with Paul there. I mean, it's everyone's saying data lake, but it comes down to the odd good data in equals good data out.
Exactly.
Parlance of.
Obviously the situation of the customer. What's their use? Should they have a data lake? Well, maybe they should, but they also need a data warehouse.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't get away from that. And that's, again, the out-of-the-box connectors with Timextender allowing us to connect to different data lakes with different software providers, and we can do it quick and seamlessly. And you make calculations, transformations, etc., easy to put into that data.
I think talking about the connectors, I mean, the one I'm really more excited is the Azure services that are coming in, and sort of the cloud-based stuff. It's, yes, they're still talking about data lakes, but then there's no getting away from the data warehousing part. There's no, it has to have that Synapse, Azure Synapse or Data Factory. We still have to use that kind of model. That data lake still where you store it, but we have to suck it up somehow and transform it in some places. And that's where Timextender can reach in there and go, right, okay, bypassing the whole Azure Data Factory or Synapse, and we can do it within Timextender and just suck that up from the Azure data lakes.
Yeah, that's really cool. Also, you're touching on something important here. We're mentioning technology sort of underneath. And obviously, new technology comes out over time. So now it's a lot of talking about Microsoft Fabric and so forth. And when you're using a tool like Timextender, you're actually getting those tools when you need them, because you can just easily switch to them. As you talked in the beginning, you can migrate from one platform to another easily. So that's what you get from using a tool like Timextender as well. You're ready for the future.
Yeah, and you've also got the comfort of a consistent UI. That's it's not a UI that's built for developers. It's built for analysts, for users, and that while you get the benefits of the new tech underneath, that layer remains a constant. It's comfortable. It's usable.
Drag and drop.
Yeah.
Oh, so coming from using on a client like the OEM ECL Agile, but then you turn to the ECL Timextender desktop. It's almost exactly, if not exactly the same. It's just there are a few other more perks to the Timextender desktop, and going from one to another is seamless.
Yeah.
I don't actually see the difference really, but you've got the added functionality of the ODIX servers, which I find quite exciting. Once we start using it properly, then I know.
Super. It's been a great chat, guys. Really enjoyed this. You're super experienced. Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure.